Well, who'd you think was going to be the highest paid quarterback by the end of the 2024 offseason? Bet you didn't have these guys on your bingo card. We got all that and much more on today's episode of Locked On NFL.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, football fans, and welcome into another episode of Locked On NFL. It is Tuesday, so you've got Luke Braun at Luke Braun NFL on your favorite social media. Myself, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola, here breaking down some of the biggest stories from around the National Football League. Today, we're going to dive into a few different things. We're going to go all positive for our Yike and Like. Instead of telling you what we liked and what we didn't like from the week before, we're just going into what we're liking right now because we're feeling very positive today with football being back. We're also going to take a look at hold-ins and the role that they potentially play in some very public negotiating tactics. And to kick us all off, we're taking a look at Jordan Love, the Green Bay Packers quarterback, could be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL by week's end. What could that mean for the Packers, and what do we think about that? Also, how long will it last? Because I think that's going to be a big part of that question as well. So Luke and I are going to break it all down for you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel makes sure that sports never stop sporting. So go check them out. They're giving you, as any customer, all customers, a new boost or bonus every single day. That means that there's something for you every day, everyone, all summer long. Just head over to FanDuel.com to make more of your summer. Luke, it looks like Jordan Love is going to become, or could potentially become, the highest paid quarterback, at least for a little while, in the NFL in an offseason where players like Dak Prescott, quarterbacks like Trevor Lawrence were up for these contract extensions. I'm going to be honest, I didn't have Jordan Love on my list as the guy that was going to become potentially the highest paid quarterback in the NFL this offseason. Was I wrong? Or at least I will be for a little bit.
I mean, look, it's whoever's going to get paid next is the highest paid.
It's all about that timing.
Like how many quarterbacks, starting quarterbacks that are on their second deals, their big giant real money deals, have held this title at some point? I feel like about all of them have, because the next guy just wants to one up the last guy. I think there probably shouldn't have ever been any ambiguity about whether the Packers would pay Jordan Love after the way he ended the season last year. It was, all right, yep, they're going to pay him then. And how much that's going to be also is, I think, a little more predetermined by nature than like you're not trying to say, well, I think he's the 8th best quarterback, so I'll pay him the 8th most. No, he's going to pay what the market says. Right. And the market says that if you are paying your quarterback, he's going to be the highest paid guy ever until the next guy comes along. So I think that is relatively predictable, going, okay, well, who's up to be paid? Jordan Love, Tua, they'll probably be the highest paid. And then whoever it is next year, which we're starting to get into sketchy territory with, the 2022 class and stuff, where maybe guys won't get paid for a while. And then there's going to be a huge jump when you get to the 2023 class. But the question, I think, about the Packers, it was never how much. The price, I think, is somewhat fixed. It has to be the highest paid guy ever. If not, they're not going to look you in the eye. And once you sort of accept that, the question is, do you or don't you do it? And the idea of the Packers not doing it feels clinically insane.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
So it was always going to happen. So now it is on the brink of happening. We'll see all the contract details and stuff soon. And then we can all talk about where the out is. The real drama of it is how much of a true commitment is this? You can make that number that Adam Schefter and Tom Pelissero tweet out, say whatever you want it to say. But the question is, how many years? Are they going to lock in 5 years of Jordan Love? Or are they going to have 2 years with an option? Right. But all of it's going to look like he's making $200 million over 4 years or whatever it is. But is it real? What is the commitment, the guarantees and the structure and all that stuff? But how long are they committing themselves to Jordan Love? That's the question that I'm going to have. And if it is a long commitment with a giant cap hit, then the question goes to the rest of their roster.
Yeah, that's going to be the big thing, right? Now that you've got the quarterback in place, can this young offensive roster perform up to standards where you have the weapons necessary to support the big contract quarterback? It's really easy, or it's easier to build a roster when you're building with a rookie quarterback on a rookie deal, but it didn't really feel like the Packers ever really had that opportunity, because while Jordan Love, for the majority of the time that he was ever on a rookie deal, Aaron Rodgers was still eating up their salary cap, either by being on the team or dead money, whatever it might be. And so they didn't get the opportunity to really build all of this. Now they've done it through the draft, guys like Christian Watkins, Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs. These are all wide receivers that I think are great young wideouts. But if they don't perform up to standard, that's kind of where, or above standard, I think that's kind of where things can get a little bit tricky for Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers in terms of making sure that they are building the best possible offense around their quarterback. This isn't a, you look at they didn't do it. They didn't do it, but the New York Giants tried, right? We're going to build up the offense and then plug in whatever quarterback there. It didn't work out. But that's the typical way that a team will go to try towards building things. Now you already have the rookie quarterback, but you never got to take advantage of the rookie contract scale, all this other stuff. So now you're just hoping that this band of young guys can be the weapons that are necessary to support the offense and support this team winning games.
Yeah, and they're really excited about those guys over there in Green Bay. About, not only Dontavion Wicks, which the fantasy community is going crazy over, Romeo Doubs, whatever you get from Christian Watson, but even like Bo Melton, like a lot of these young guys, they're really excited about those guys, but the standard gets higher when the QB gets paid, as unfair as that is, because it's not shouldn't affect his on-field at all, right? But you're not going to live in a world where you can run out and, trade for Brandon Ayuk. Right?
Yeah.
That's not the world you live in when you're on this, or whatever that year's Brandon Ayuk is. So the question about Love becomes, who do we get this week? And if we don't get the good Jordan Love, last year it was a tale of two halves in the season. First half of the season, Jordan Love struggled a lot. Second half, he was awesome. Which one do I get today? And if it is the bad version of Jordan Love, do I have the skill players necessary to propel us to a win anyways? Do I have people who can make up for if Jordan Love throws 3 picks today?
Yeah.
And that is a much harder question to answer. I covered a team for 6 years with a very inconsistent quarterback on a large contract, right? And that inconsistency lost the Vikings games. And that's not to compare Jordan Love to Kirk Cousins at all. They're not the same quarterback. There's very few similarities. It's just that they're both volatile. And volatility, like, somebody needs to step up. If Jordan Love is not on, you need Josh Jacobs to have a damn day. And do you get that out of this team? That I think will be the operative question. I know yesterday they talked a lot about the Packers versus the Lions in the NFC North. I think that's the question that determines how far the Packers can go in the NFC North and how far they can go to challenging the Lions, who have answered all of those questions and who are running back like a proven thing that we know can dunk on someone, who we know can cover its own kind of deficiencies when one guy isn't on, when Jared Goff's having a problem, right? Maybe the running game can do something. What is that for the Packers? If Jordan Love's having a bad day, who's the guy that steps up and takes over the game? That's the question that I have, and I think there are candidates for who that guy can be. But you're not going to get 17 perfect games. Nobody gets that.
Right.
So inevitably, this question is going to smack them in the face. Who comes up and does it? And if we're talking about the Packers in the NFC Championship game, we probably have a really clear answer to who that is. And if we aren't, then we don't.
Yeah. Big time. All right, let's take a look next at how hold-ins play into this. We'll explain how this is connected to Jordan Love, but a big part of this is what other players could potentially see hold-ins from, including the quarterback that could quickly surpass Jordan Love for the richest quarterback in the NFL. We got that coming up for you next as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On NFL, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's Locked On NFL episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs is not just a job board. It's not just the biggest job board out there, which it is, but it also is an exclusive place to find a lot of the talent that you might be looking for. So if you are in a hiring role, which probably isn't the only thing you do, and LinkedIn understands that you probably have a whole bunch of other responsibilities. They've got a bunch of tools to not only help you make your job posting as good as it can be, AI tools that can help you optimize and ways to narrow down a gigantic pool of applicants, but they also have 70% of people on LinkedIn don't go to other job boards. So if you're not on LinkedIn, you're missing out on a huge portion of the talent pool that you could be pulling from to find that perfect candidate. So Go to LinkedIn and post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free and take advantage of all of these great tools. Once again, that is linkedin.com/lockedonnfl.
All right, everybody, continuing on with today's episode of Locked On NFL. We appreciate you very much, as always, making us your first listen of the day every day. Now, Jordan Love is on his way to becoming the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. In the process, while he's awaiting that deal, he has already mentioned that he is, or it's been reported, that he is not going to participate in practices until that deal is done, effectively evoking the phrase, a hold-in. We're here to explain what a hold-in is, the role that it plays, and who else we might see utilize this practice moving forward. For more on the biggest stories around the world of sports, make sure you're checking out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 stream program to give you all the big stories from the local experts that cover those teams every single day. You can find it on the Locked On Sports Today YouTube page and on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, Luke, as we take a look at hold-ins, right, I want to first define what used to be the practice, which is the hold out. Would you like
all
to
remember
start?
them?
Yes. So remind us first what a holdout is, and then I'll explain why holdouts don't happen anymore, or aren't going to be happening anymore.
Right. I mean, you all remember the old days, Le'Veon Bell holding out for an entire year. You want a new contract. The team's not meeting you where you think you are, and you go, all right, well, then I'm not going to play. I know you need me. I'm your superstar, and we're going to play this big game of chicken. In the old world of the CBA, team, like you would get fined for missing practice, right? Like if you just no show to practice, it's fines that can easily add up to millions of dollars worth of fines. And in the old world, once the team and player came to an agreement, the team could choose to waive those fines, and they usually would choose to, as a measure of good faith, say we got the contract done, it's all over, no harm, no foul, water under the bridge, let's be done. But as you'll explain, that's no longer how it works. And so there is really a genuine cost to holding out. Players still can't, I mean, nobody's forcing you at gunpoint to go to practice. You can do whatever you want, but the consequences are a lot more tangible and real.
Yes. So the consequences now equate in each day missed, equating up to a fine up to $40,000 per missed practice, which is a considerable chunk of change that adds up pretty quickly over the course of time. And as Luke pointed out, what used to be the option of then waiving those fines once the contract is done, well, that's not a part of the CBA anymore. If you incur those fines, you have to pay those fines. And sure, they go to charity. It's technically a write-off, all these other things, but it still adds up very quickly, especially
it's docked pay, by the way. So you don't even get the team gets to write it off themselves, but you don't. You're just out of luck.
Yeah, but the player doesn't. So it's effectively you just getting your paycheck completely docked out. And then now, if you miss preseason games, you would also forfeit and be docked that preseason weekly pay check as well. So there's also that going into the preseason. So this makes it a lot more dire. This makes it a lot tougher for players to hold out in the middle of contract negotiations. So what players have taken to doing now is holding in, which I'll quickly explain is simply showing up to practice. And you've all seen in people's practice observations and things like that, present but not participating. That's basically what you're looking at. They're dressed, sometimes not dressed, just watching off on the sideline, taking things in, maybe still doing classroom stuff, all of that.
Sometimes helping the young kids along. I remember Melvin Gordon one from a while ago, got featured on Hard Knocks. And he still took the time to talk to the rookies and be part of the team and stuff. And it was a very uncontentious thing, but it was, I'm not going to get injured while I don't have a contract.
And so the purpose that this serves is kind of multiple, right? It's multiple in that you're not going to put yourself at risk while you're negotiating a contract. Last thing you want to do while you're negotiating contract is end up getting hurt. But I would say too, Luke, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it's also a little bit of kind of the public negotiation standard that is acceptable as of right now, right? It's a little bit of that public negotiating.
It's a little more good faith because you're physically in the building. If you're like, there. I don't have my contract, I'm leaving and going to a beach in Miami. And, call me when you want to, like, you can be suddenly very disconnected from the people you're trying to negotiate with. And then it's a lot easier to have that staring contest when you're sipping daiquiris on the beach and it's on them to call you. But it's a lot harder to do that when you're looking face to face with the guy every day, right? And you're in the building. You're also making the effort to show up every day and send that message to the team. Hey, I'm still part of this. We got this contract thing going on. I'm doing what's best for me, but it doesn't mean I'm not part of the team. I think there's that good faith, and I think that makes it easier to get something done for both sides. I think that physical proximity can do something sometimes. So I like the trend of the hold in. I think it's still well within a player's rights, right? I mean, how many stories have we seen of a guy that was about to get a contract and then tore his ACL, warming up for a training camp practice before they even had shells on, and it changed everything. So the less that happens, I'm good with that. The NFL is supposed to be a meritocracy. You play well, you get paid. And the less obstacles you have in the way of that, in my opinion, the better. And I think the hold in removes some of those. And then it gets a bit, let's get back on the field. Enough of this money business crap. Let's get back on the field. I think it accelerates that.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of misconception sometimes too, that the team is negotiating directly with the player. That's not typically the case. There are cases of that, but that's not
the agent.
The case. Yeah, they're working with the agent. They're working with their team, all this other stuff. So as a player, you can say, okay, I'm going to let y'all have those conversations. I'm just not going to put myself at risk, but I'm still going to show publicly that I am here and a part of what it is that this team is doing. So we could see Jordan Love do this, or we are expecting to see Jordan Love do this until the contract gets done. But there are some other players that this could potentially happen with. And Luke, I want to start off with the quarterback that could potentially very quickly become the next highest paid quarterback right after Jordan Love becomes the next highest paid quarterback. And that could be Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. This could make sense for him too, while he's waiting for effectively 2 deals to get done in the meanwhile.
Yeah, and I think if you're the Packers or the Dolphins, if I'm the Packers, I don't want Jordan Love sniffing a football field yet. You do not get hurt.
Yeah, right. Yeah, good point. Yeah, this isn't just about what the player wants. This is good for the team too.
It's good for the team for him not to get hurt. I like the situation that I always go to is the one that I covered with Danielle Hunter in 2020. He was in a contract year. Probably would have gotten a big extension shortly. But he got what turned out to be I think a bulging disc in his neck. He had to get that surgery. This was the J.J. Watt injury that took him out for 2-3 years. It really bad injury with a risk of re-injury that will follow him for his entire career. And it muddied the entire contract situation. And now he is still very much in his athletic prime playing in Houston because of that injury. If it weren't for that injury, this contract thing would have been easy peasy. He would have gotten done just like every other star got done in Minnesota during Rick Spielman's tenure. And he would have retired a Viking like Harrison Smith has. Or like Harrison Smith will. But if you're the Packers, you do not want that to happen, right? You do not want to,
especially with your quarterback,
suddenly have a risk that you didn't ask for that encourages you to 3 years from now. Jordan Love is playing in, I don't know, Cleveland, and you're going, who's coming out of the Pac-12 this year? Like you don't want that, or the Pac-2. I don't know. Like you don't want that to happen. So if I'm a Packers fan, I'm like, I'm putting Jordan Love in bubble wrap till he has his deal, till he's locked 100%. Up, till there is no ambiguity about this. Because once you have your deal, if you get hurt now, then it's just, all right, well, you'll be back next year. And then it's so much more short term. An injury now can affect the next 10 years of the Packers. Please put them away. So I think if I'm the Dolphins, if I'm the Packers, I'm good. I'm telling Tua, don't practice. Let's get the contract done. No, you stay. It's fine. You don't need camp. You've been our starter for many years. You're good.
You know what's going on here. And a lot of the times these guys are still in the film room. They're still,
right. You're still in the meetings. You're still doing stuff.
You're still in meetings.
You're not falling behind. You're just not risking an injury in a very crucial moment to stay healthy for. But who else could there be outside of the quarterback rooms?
Yeah, I'll name a couple quickly here. One of the ones that comes to mind immediately is Alvin Kamara, New Orleans Saints running back. He's in the midst of contract dispute with the team. Really just, I think, looking for more guaranteed money. He has 0 guaranteed money in 2025, wants a bit of a commitment from the organization, yada, yada. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does a little bit of hold in over in Irvine, California, as they kick off later on this week when it comes to those. And honestly, I'm curious about guys like CeeDee Lamb, maybe, over in Dallas and what could potentially happen there. And then Jamar Chase is definitely one worth watching as well. I would imagine we'll see exactly what happens with those guys as veterans report, though.
I could see Jamar Chase. Well, it'll especially come to next year. I could see Jamar Chase doing that, although it's early for him. I'm thinking more of guys in the
that's true too.
Class. Like what happens with, I mean, Brandon Ayuk is in a full holdout. That's a messy situation.
Yeah, that's a whole
I could see,
situation,
the rest of the CeeDee Lamb types. Anybody, if you got your 2020 first round pick and you want him, or your 2021 non-first round pick and you're going into a contract year and they're good, I could see that being a decent idea.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, coming up next, we're going to take a look at our likes for the week, including football is back, baby. And we cannot wait. We got that coming up for you here as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On NFL, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On NFL is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. You can right now go bet on anything on the NFL. The NFL is here. Training camp is back. And it doesn't matter if you're betting on the NFL or the WNBA or MLB, if you need a reason to make that interesting, or even the Olympics. You can find a new deal, some boost or bonus every single day. So just go to FanDuel.com, check back every day, see if there's something that interests you. Once again, that is FanDuel.com, the best place to lay down your 2024 futures bets on the Detroit Lions, which is what everybody is going to do. Plus 1,200 for the Super Bowl. Once again, that is FanDuel.com. Make every moment more.
All right, everybody, wrapping up today's episode of Locked On NFL with our likes of the week. We're very positive today, Luke, looking at the good side of things because football is back, and I think we're all very excited to see that. Training camps have kicked off all around or will be kicking off this week all around the NFL, and that means everybody's back to work. The news is back. The rookies are going to stand out. The quarterbacks and new systems, new coaches. There's going to be a ton to pay attention to. And we are just elated with the fact that our favorite game is finally back, like back, not just OTA back.
I'm ready. This has been a long summer of a lot of annoying non-stories. A lot of people trying to find a way to make a headline out of what Aaron Rodgers said on his last podcast. Enough. Give us something. Give us some red meat to chew on, please.
Yeah, man. It's going to be exciting. And here at Locked On, it's going to be super fun as well. We have several folks that are going to be, every single NFL team is covered here on the network. And so we'll have daily shows breaking down everything going on around training camp. Here on Locked On NFL, you're going to see a lot of our folks featured as well as we continue to get reports and things like that from everybody that's going to be attending training camp. So if you're looking for one place to come to find everything, Locked On NFL is going to have it covered for you. What is one of the biggest stories that you're excited to see, Luke, this offseason? While you think about it, I'll tell you mine. I think that the biggest thing that I'm most excited to see from around the NFL goes back to a guy that we've been really excited about, Anthony Richardson. I'm so interested to see like where he has gone now with all that time to get familiar with the system, all that time to work on all that. Like, I cannot wait for all of it. So I'm very excited to see what Anthony Richardson looks like in training camp and how that could potentially translate to the 2024 season. But training camp wise, I'm excited to see all the Anthony Richardson stories out there, and Locked On Colts, of course, going to be talking all about it.
Yeah, I think I go a nerdier direction here. It is always a really big treat to see. So my answer is the Rams. And the reason is I am super curious to see what Sean McVay does. Here's the thing. Sean McVay is doing it different. He went way harder into the gap scheme family of things.
Lots of duo last year.
Is insane. It's like Bugs Bunny saying, I'll only do live action things. Like, that's not what you're known for, dude. That's not your thing. And it was, I will say, mixed results last year. They had games where they kind of fell apart. They still got a lot of injuries and stuff, and that roster is far from complete. So, like, I don't see the Rams winning the NFC West over the 49ers or anything like that. That's their division until someone comes and takes it from them.
Sure.
But, that division's really fun. I even think that the Cardinals have, if they have Kyler Murray, they can, take a dumb game off of you too and be this weird spoiler, even though they're still like in the throes of a rebuild. But the Rams in particular are fascinating to me because I think McVay is on the cusp of forging new territory when it comes to the way that his system can deviate, can become a more power, puller heavy, sort of trap protections and play action and all this stuff. Like there's a whole world of sort of unexplored ideas. And I think McVay is exploring them, and it will be totally unrecognizable compared to the Shanahan and McDaniel and O'Connell and Zach Taylor and all the other, McVay Shanahan clones that are out there now. Clint Kubiak in New Orleans. All of those guys, they'll be a little samey, and that's fine, right? Copycat league, good ideas spread.
Yeah.
And I think McVay is going to do something weird, and I'm really excited to see what that looks like.
Yeah, I can't wait. You know what you reminded me of too, just in terms of being nerdy and seeing something weird? The new kickoff rule. We get the opportunity to see all of this over the course of training camp too, teams getting ready for it, all that. I think the preseason is going to be littered with laundry, just penalty flag after penalty flag after penalty flag as people try to get this right, but should be good by the time that we get to the regular season. But really excited to see some of that early work get started.
They always call stuff tighter in the preseason too, because they're like trying to make a point.
True. Yep.
So we're all positive. We're in good moods today. I'm going to go to my backyard here. Kind of two likes in one. The Vikings had their first media appearance today since the tragic and frustrating events of July, with Khyree Jackson passing away, and then a couple weeks later, Jordan Addison getting arrested on suspicion of DUI. That has been really difficult to process in the Minnesota media community, but we haven't really gotten a sense for how it's affecting them in the building. This is the first time we got to talk to them. And for one, I really like the way the Vikings have handled this. They're giving like $20,000 to the funeral, which will be a joint funeral for Khyree Jackson and the other teammates that were in the car. That's got to cover most of it, I imagine.
Yeah.
Also, the Vikings will be wearing stickers that say KJ all season, pins on the staff's lapels. I think that it's really important. It was really important to the fans that something like that get done. Like a lot of people really wanted that, and I think just honoring the memory there too. And I also just go listen to the press conference. I think O'Connell in particular handled this in exactly the way that I would want him to when he was asked. He was asked tough questions, right? How do you bring the team together during this time? How do you reconcile this event with that event when they're so close together and there's such a dark and like ironic frustration to it? And he really cared about the human side of things, especially when he was talking about Jordan Addison, because a lot of people just want to kind of take Jordan Addison, crumple him up and throw him in the trash and say, you're too much of a head case, I don't care. And for someone like O'Connell, who knows Addison and cares about him as a person, he really rejected that idea. And he said, no, this is my job as a coach is to make him the best version of himself that he can be. And throwing him out on the street doesn't do that.
Yep.
And I really liked his answer. I encourage you to go watch that, because I think that they handled it really well in a way that shows that they're serious about the disciplinary parts of this, and they take things seriously, but they all still care about each other, and that they're still a group of humans, which is so easy to forget.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I love, talking to players and everything and asking about coaches, and they'll talk about like their impact that the coach will have on the field, but almost inevitably, almost every single time you always hear some players say, and they make me a better person or help me become a better person or something like that. And I just love all that, because I think that for a lot of people that grow up playing sports and everything like that, like that coach, that kind of being a coach or having a coach sometimes means a lot more than just what you're doing on the field. Like sometimes that is foundational to your ability to be able to grow as a human and all these other things. And so it's super cool. It's super cool.
Especially in the formative, like in the high school years.
Yeah, man.
Especially for kids that like maybe their dad isn't in the picture. This is their male role model, is your coach.
Yeah.
And that's, you see them every day and they instruct you every day. Like it's, a lot of people say it's not that different of a relationship.
Yeah. It's pretty incredible. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, man. If you want to hear more about that, of course, you can go and check out Locked On Vikings as well. Luke does a phenomenal job breaking down this kind of stuff and everything going on with the Vikings. We appreciate you very much, as always, for being here with us for another episode of Locked On NFL. Coming up tomorrow, James and Chris going to break down the biggest stories from around the league, and of course, keep you up to date with all of the things that are going on, especially now as more coaches are doing pressers, as more team news is happening, all that. We got a lot for you here at Locked On NFL every single Monday through Friday. So make sure you're coming through daily and check out the show. Luke and I will see you next week. We appreciate you very much for being here and for checking us out on today's episode of Locked On NFL, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.